As the course of the semester has gone on, our programs have gotten longer and more complicated, and the tools that we were originally using to build and run and test our code aren't really working as well as we would like. So originally we were using Nano to edit, G++ to compile, and the command line or the shell to run or test our code. And those things sort of worked okay. The real bottleneck is in our editor, right? Nano has gotten a little bit underpowered for what we need it to. So I've been asked to show you some other editors that you can use to help be more efficient in your code production. So I'm going to show you a couple of them today. The first one I'm going to show you is what's called XCode. Now XCode is not just an editor. It is one that's known as an IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. The idea of an IDE is that all of these functions that we've been using separately, editing, compiling, running the code, and testing, are combined into one program instead of split across multiple. So Xcode is actually quite complicated. I kind of feel like, if we were teaching you to learn how to fly and we were in a very small single engine propeller plane with a stick and rudder and a throttle and that's all you had, now we're suddenly moving you up to the controls of a Boeing 747. There's still the stick, there's still the rudder, there's still the pedals, but there's like 85,000 other things that really aren't of interest to you right now. So I'm not sure I recommend Xcode. That being said, I can talk you through it and you can look and see how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start Xcode. I think this is one of the most recent versions. You might get a message that says it has to install some components and you have to type your password the first time, and that's fine. And oh, by the way, if Xcode is not on your Mac, you can download it from the App Store, I believe, for free. So when you get here and you get to this screen, you will see Welcome to Xcode. What you're going to want to do is you're going to create a new Xcode project. And when it comes down, you will get this big list. Now, this, like I said, is an incredible tool. It does a lot of stuff. You don't want to build for iOS for phones or watchOS or tvOS or Mac platform, across platform. What you want to do is click the tab that says Mac OS. Then you don't want a Cocoa Hacker game. What you really want is just a command line tool. That is the simple thing that we are using right now. Okay? You click Next. This thing will come up and you have to give it a name. You might name it like Project 2 or Project 3 or whatever. If you're part of a team, you have to add that. You might have an organization name and identifier. I've just put those in as fillers. You can probably just use your name. Then you'll have to choose the language. I believe that Swift is what appears by default. We are obviously not learning Swift. We are learning C++. So you can choose that language and then click Next. Now what's going to happen is it's going to bring up an option for where you want to save your project. Now the project is a bunch of files, including the source code file that you're going to be working on. So what you want to do with this is you want to put it someplace you can find it easily. I'm going to put it on the desktop by clicking Desktop here. And then I will hit create, and what will happen is it will create a file called demo on my desktop. Now, when you get to this, you have a lot of stuff going on here, right? Most of it you don't really need, really, you don't. There are some settings over here for using spaces and things like that. What you want to do is you want to go over here on the left and see this where it says main.cpp. Main.cpp is going to be the file where your source code is, okay? So if we look at it here, it's already inserted just a very simple hello world program, #include IOStream. It doesn't have using namespace standard. You're going to want to add that to your code. And then int main and doing some stuff to print things out, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a real program in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this program which we wrote before, which is about how to read numbers from files, and I'm just going to paste our whole program in there. Notice that I did put the using namespace standard in there. That does make a difference, okay? So once you've edited your program and you're ready to test it, all right, so I've skipped the whole editing part just because you'll know how to do this, right? You'll know how to type stuff in. And you will see that as you do things, it's kind of nice. Sometimes it will, the editor will help figure out what you're trying to type, right? It'll predict for you, oh, do you want number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and you can actually just, click and fill things in. So it's going to be a little bit more powerful in Nano. It will help you realize what's going on, or try to, okay? All right, so once we're done editing, now we have to compile. Well, the compiler is built into this, and it's up here under this play button. And if you run it, it will actually compile, and you saw the little hammer that come up that said build succeeded. And then down here on the bottom, you will actually get the menu, the place where the code is running. And in fact, you can type things in here, right? So let's say we want to input a file. We want to use input.data. And we run, and it says file not round, and it ends. This is one of the problems with using Xcode, is that it's very difficult to tell your to figure out where your program is running and put the data file where your program can find it. So let me just show you how to do this. So what we have is on the desktop, if you look and see, we have this file input.data, and it's on our desktop. We actually have to figure out the full path to our desktop. So in order to do that, what we can do is we type cd, and then we say cd desktop, and now we are in the directory that has this input.data. But we have to tell the program how to get there. So if we type pwd, that will bring up the full path to the directory, and it says users COSE051 desktop. So I'm going to copy that. And when I go back and run the program again, just by clicking this arrow, it says build succeeded, input file name. I'm going to paste that whole thing in. So it says users COSE051 desktop, and then type input.data. And now the program actually is able to find our data. Okay. All right. Makes sense to everyone, right? You're compiling, you can run it on your computer, you can do all your editing. If you need to use input files, put them on the desktop, and then you have to figure out where your desktop is. Normally it'll be users, your username, whatever that is, desktop, and then you can have the data file right there. So now the question is, let's just save. When the time comes and we have to upload our code to Autolab, how do we find it? Well, let me just go back to the desktop for a second and I'll show you. Remember we called our project demo, and here it is right here, demo. If we double click that folder, it opens some stuff. It's got the Xcode project. But if we open this demo folder, we will find this file main.cpp. And this main.cpp is actually where our source code lives. So that is what you want to upload to Autolab. So if we go to Autolab and I say I'm going to submit some code for the project 3 compile check, click the checkbox, say submit, and it'll bring up, well, in this case I just did it beforehand, but it'll bring up perhaps desktop or something. So what you want to do is go to desktop, find demo, open demo, get main CCP, CPP, and then say choose, and it'll run and do its thing. Now, this code obviously doesn't meet the project requirements, but we can actually make sure it compiled correctly, and it did, and if we click on there, you can see that it compiled well, okay? It's important for you to make sure it compiles on Autolab before you submit it. The compiler between Xcode and Autolab probably has some differences. Okay, so there you go. That's how to use Xcode if you want to. I'm not sure I recommend it. I'm going to put up a couple of other editor examples that you might try and use if you want.